Welcome to TJ and the Grumpy Old Man. I'm your host, TJ, and with me again, as always, I'm sure as you can assume, is the Grumpy Old Man. They say there's no shame in his game because he is quite always the same.
That's me.
Now, Grump, a lot of crazy hot takes going on in sports right now. I'll tell you one thing. Nothing more explosive than the Le'Veon Bell. Le'Veon Bell making news, making waves, Grumpy Old Man, this last week for a response he had made there saying he would never play for Andy Reid again. He would rather retire before playing for Andy Reid ever again, Grumpy.
Well, can I just say one thing? He didn't even play for Andy Reid when he was on the Chiefs. So what's the difference, honestly?
We can agree, though, that Andy Reid misused Le'Veon Bell, right?
I don't think so. I think Le'Veon Bell is finished. He's been finished as a player for a number of years. You know how come I know? Because he was on my fantasy team, and it's been a wasted pick the last 3 years. Okay. He's never been the same since he left Pittsburgh, not even close.
Okay, Grumpy. We're starting early. Listen, Le'Veon Bell played for the miserable New York Jets for years. Miserable. I'm talking bottom of the barrel New York Jets for 2 years, right? That offensive line was hideous. No quarterback. Darno had no weapons besides Le'Veon Bell. No wide receiver weapons, really. He gets traded to the Kansas City Chiefs, and they still roll out and use Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Call it crazy. I'm not a big fan of Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I think he's more of a third down type of back. He can't carry the ball on a consistent basis. Had those fumbling issues too. I'm sorry, they misused him. You bring in a guy who's an all-pro caliber running back, and the Chiefs barely used him. I don't understand the frustration if I'm Le'Veon Bell. I'm sorry, I get his point.
Okay, the last year he was an all-pro was 2017. Okay, it's like saying, Jim Brown was playing there. Yeah, he's 80-something years old now. He used to be an all-pro too. But, it doesn't matter. He's finished, okay? And his thing, he wasn't traded from the Jets. He was released because he made too much money. He just wasn't that good. And Kansas City signed him on the cheap. And guess what? He wasn't any good there either. Are you trying to tell me that Andy Reid, and I don't think Andy Reid's the greatest coach in the world, but I think he can evaluate running back talent. Clyde Edwards-Helaire as well as Williams were both better than Le'Veon Bell. I even picked Le'Veon Bell up when he was with Kansas City on my fantasy team. And you know what? Another big goose egg for me. That guy, I'm never going to pick him again.
Can you stop talking fantasy sports first off? Not a fantasy sports podcast, Grump.
Okay. That being fantasy sports but fantasy sports, I use that to tell you if a guy's productive or not. He's not.
Okay, thanks so much for the tat to tell me whether they're productive. Looking at their fantasy sports numbers, that is the beacon and the pinnacle of production, I guess, by running backs and via NFL players. Okay, Le'Veon Bell was a much better back than anybody the Kansas City Chiefs had. I'm going to tell you one thing, ladies and gentlemen. Le'Veon Bell is not going to be the same Le'Veon Bell we've seen with the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's just not going to happen. I mean, those days, the fun and the sun for that are well in the rearview mirror. That being said, he needs to go somewhere where he can get meaningful minutes. I still think he's got enough left in the tank where he could be a very, very purposeful back. He's only, think about it, Grump, he's only going to be 29 years old next year. He sat out the year in 2018 when he was 27, or I'm sorry, when he was 26, he sat out 2018 when he was 26. He played a year for the Jets. Yikes. And then, last year was a little bit with the Jets until he was released. And then the Chiefs, he barely played at all for the Chiefs either. I think he's got fresher legs than you think.
I don't. I think the fact that, he was touching the ball, 350 times a year for Pittsburgh, they had no problem letting him go. None. They knew it was diminishing returns on him. How long does an NFL running back last realistically? 3, 4 years? How many guys get second contracts after their rookie contracts? Not too many. That's all I'm saying. He's toast. I don't know what you expect. He's not Adrian Peterson. He's not Derrick Henry. He's Le'Veon Bell. Okay? And he's not good enough anymore. He's just not good enough anymore. There's no crime in that. He's just not good enough anymore. And to complain that Andy Reid had it out for him, that's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. He's not good enough. That's the problem with Le'Veon Bell. Not good enough. Okay. Just look at his fantasy numbers.
Jesus Christ, Grump. Yeah. Okay, think about how crazy of a statement that is. You just said Le'Veon Bell, and it's crazy, right? You take the clock back 3 years ago, and if you said, "Oh, Le'Veon Bell, he's not an Adrian Peterson. Le'Veon Bell's not a caliber of a Derrick Henry. Le'Veon Bell's not a character of this. He's not a caliber of this type of running back, that type of running back." Everybody would look at you like you had 8 freaking heads. I will tell you this much: I really think this is the cautionary tale of what happens when you sell out, ladies and gentlemen, for the money. If he was still happy chugging along in Pittsburgh, I think his numbers would be outstanding. And even if he wasn't and he went to a more competitive team and more competitive squad, I think his numbers would be better than they are currently. He was stuck on the absolute black hole of an organization, the Jets. I don't know what you're expecting when he was there. And then when he goes to the Kansas City, I think Andy Reid miserably misused him. And this year is the year. I feel like I say that every single year, though. This year is the year that Le'Veon Bell really shows back to the old form of Le'Veon Bell that we all loved.
You've been saying that for 3 years now, that Le'Veon Bell is going to make a comeback. He's not making a comeback. He's not. And I'm being facetious and funny about the fantasy football, but it is a harbinger of, okay, are you catching passes? Are you getting rushing yards? They're not. And the Jets were not a perfect team. Absolutely not. But here's the thing. He's beat up. He's just not good enough anymore. Running backs have a very, very short shelf life. Very short. And guess what? He's running on empty. Bye-bye, Le'Veon. I'm fizzing.
Hold on, stop. You also said he had multiple seasons where over 300 or 350 carries. He only had 1 year where he had over 300 carries. I'm sure if you're including his receptions in there too, it's much higher. That being said, I think you're sleeping on Le'Veon Bell. I think a lot of people are, because they say, all right, everybody thought he was going to have the big come up there when he went to the Jets. That didn't happen. Everybody thought he would go ahead and have the resurrection of his career when he went to the Chiefs, right? The Chiefs, so much offensive power, unbelievable wide receivers, Travis Kelce, best tight end in the league. They've got the best quarterback in the league. Now they're adding, an all-pro caliber running back. It's game over for everybody comes in their way. He only had 2 starts, and Le'Veon Bell was sat for the most time. I'm sorry. I just think he was misused. And again, we don't know the nuances and the behind the scenes of everything that happened, but I would be shocked if next year he comes out and just looks like a shell. He looks like the same shell we've seen for the last 2 years.
Prepare to be shocked. That's all I can say. You better get yourself ready, put on your big boy pants on, and just prepare to be shocked. Guess what? When he was a free agent when the Jets let him go, was there a rush to sign Le'Veon Bell? How many weeks/months did it take for Kansas City to sign him? Nobody wanted him because the league knows that he's cashed. That's the whole thing. He's finished. You think there's going to be a rush to sign him now? Kansas City doesn't care. They didn't want him back. And where's the gold rush to sign Le'Veon Bell? There is none. He maybe has a shot if a team has 5 or 6 running backs get injured and they have like a really bad team, and then he has a shot to perhaps go in there and be a backup to Sammy Scrubbolini, because that's the extent of what he's got left. Nothing. He's finished. He cashed in. Good for him. No hard feelings. But he just can't play anymore.
Let me ask you something. Now, how good is Sammy Scrubbolini? I've never heard of him, Grump.
Exactly. He sucks, and Le'Veon Bell is worse than that.
Oh, goodness gracious, Grump. I'll let you go ahead and end on that little point. Adrian there, B, saying, hi, TJ and Grumpy Old Man. How are you?
Yo, Adrian, we're here.
That's right. We are here at the TJ and the Grumpy Old Man show, live stream and podcast. I guess we'll move on there from that. Again, no use to continue to beat a dead horse. I will tell you this much. People thought, similar scenario or somewhat similar scenario. I think Leonard Fournette still has gas left in the tank. People think, the tread's worn off of his tires. Oh, released there by the Jacksonville Jaguars. He goes to Tampa, doesn't get the starting role. He plays backup for the majority of the time or splits carries there with Ronald Jones. Here's the thing, right? I think Leonard Fournette's a superior back to Ronald Jones, right? But Coach Bruce Arians loves Ronald Jones. That's my thing. I'm sorry. Sometimes the best players don't play because certain coaches have favoritism they show because they think one player fits their system better.
Okay, so we're done with Le'Veon Bell. Are you trying to draw some convoluted comparison between the two? Just let me know so I can attack either point because it's so simple, honestly.
Oh.
Realize, here's the thing. How old is Leonard Fournette? 26?
26 or 27.
How old?
26 or 27.
Yeah, 26. Okay, he's not 30. He's not finished.
Well, Le'Veon Bell's not 30, Grump. He's 29 and sat out a year.
Well, like I said, but he was touching the ball a lot more than Leonard Fournette. And yes, when I said 300, 350 that's touches. Guess what? Because he's getting hit when he's catching the ball out of the backfield too. And here's the thing: in his time, those many years ago, he was a really, really good back, really good, super productive. But he's just not that anymore. And there's no harm in that. The fact that you just keep on loving on this guy, I don't get the fascination. Honestly, I don't. And I know for a fact you had him on your fantasy team last year, and he totally did nothing. Now on to Leonard Fournette.
Hold on, Jesus freaking Christ, still with the fantasy. I will tell you one thing. I do want to actually address the comment. How freaking stupid can Le'Veon Bell be? Here's the thing. Sports stars. Here's the thing. People, I guess, new to social media or people who are not very smart about how backlash and I wouldn't even say cancel culture works, but how backlash works on the internet. You are a professional running back. Someone goes ahead and makes a comment, tags you, and you say, I will never play for Andy Reid again. I would retire first. Holy shit, man. Keep that to yourself, buddy. All you're doing is hurting whatever type of value you had. All you're doing is saying, hey, every other NFL team that's out there right now, I'm going to let everything that you think you know about me via, communications and, silent handshakes, I'm going to let that all be known to the public as well. And now there's no doubt at all that these childish, immature actions that I used to commit and I do on social media, I still do. I mean, man, oh man, stay off of social media, Le'Veon Bell.
Well, as far as the rest of the league is concerned, he's already retired because no one wants him. And, to say that about Andy Reid, you can say a lot about Andy Reid. He can't manage a clock. He's really not a great big game coach, and he's not.
He eats hamburgers for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. A whole bunch of things you can say about Andy Reid.
But he's absolutely a player's coach.
Yes.
The players all love him. And, he says, I think Le'Veon Bell knows that no one's signing him, and he's hoping to drum up some interest in himself that maybe somebody will take a shot on an over-the-hill, washed-up running back because that's what he is. Now, to touch on Leonard Fournette, you realize Leonard Fournette was this freaking close, and this is my finger going like an inch, to being cut last year in week 14 because he was unhappy in his role. And Bruce Arians said, well, this is your role. He said, this is your role for right now. And if you don't like it, you can move on. I think he's a better overall back than Ronald Jones as well. And I thought he played admirably in the playoffs. That said, he's nowhere near as good a running back as he was when he was in Jacksonville as a featured back.
Oh, my God. Okay, here's the thing, right? It'd be like you sitting on the bench as the best goddamn wide receiver on your team and some other scrub's getting every single rep at first team. He's getting the better routes, and you're over there sitting and riding the pine when you know you're better. I'm sorry. That shit would piss me off, too. Here's the thing. He didn't go ahead and walk away. He said, all right, I'm ready to play. But I'm going to tell you one thing. I think Bruce Arians made a huge, again, won the Super Bowl, made a huge mistake. Ronald Jones is, I'm sorry. How many more passes do we need to see Ronald Jones drop? How many more times do we need to see him run at the back of an offensive lineman for a 2-yard gain? He doesn't have the big play threat. And I think Leonard Fournette's a better overall back. I think he's a better pass catching back too. Neither here nor there. But those coaches make poor decisions, just like we saw right there. I think Leonard Fournette deserved the lion's share of the carries. I thought Le'Veon Bell should have deserved the lion's share of the carries instead of Clyde Edwards-Helaire. That's why when items got cold and when it was in bad conditions and you couldn't go ahead and pass for a million zillion yards, you couldn't run the football either because you have a guy out there, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, is 5 foot nothing, weighing 200 pounds, sniffing 200 if he's lucky, soaking wet.
I wouldn't sell short on that kid. He's way better than Le'Veon Bell. I can tell you that much. Even when he was injured, he was better. But here's the thing. You want to know how much faith? Here's the thing. Ronald Jones cannot catch a pass out of the backfield. Without a doubt, he can. Leonard Fournette wasn't much better. Okay? Was he better than Ronald Jones? Yeah. I'm better than Ronald Jones catching the ball out of the backfield. Leonard Fournette, not much of a reach. That's why they went out and signed Giovanni Bernard, because he's not going to be the guy who catches passes. Fournette dropped about 10 passes last year. 10. And he was your third down back. And here's nothing he can't do. He can't pass block either. In the NFC Championship game, he took the wrong angle. He took the wrong guy, had to wait till Brady clears and then comes across. Brady throws the ball up. Mike Evans doesn't come back where it picks it off. And I'll tell you what, that made that game way closer than it needed to be. Okay? But here's the thing. I like Leonard Fournette. I kind of like him in tandem with Ronald Jones. I think competition is good. The only reason that he got to play last year at the tail end is when Ronald Jones wound up having COVID. That's the only reason he got in the lineup. Because you're right. Bruce Arians loves Ronald Jones. This year, though, Leonard Fournette will be the starter. Mark my words, with Giovanni Bernard being the third down guy.
Okay. I said that last year, too. I thought Fournette was going to win the starting job. He didn't. Here's the thing, right? When
You're not me. You're not me. You're not intelligent like I am. Okay? I'm telling you what's happening this year.
Is that what it is, Grump? Is it a lack of intelligence is what you're trying to strum this up to, huh?
I firmly believe that, yes.
Oh, goodness. Moving right along, have one more football topic to think about and to talk about. I was pondering. I was doing some prep here for the show, and something crossed my mind, whether it's a make it or break it year for Daniel Jones. This is going to be his third year in the NFL. Last year, I mean, you can use that as a write-off. Without Barkley, you could still argue, his offensive weapons around him were banged up. They were injured. Numbers weren't great there for Daniel Jones. But I really want an opinion, Grump. I feel like this has to be a make it or break it year for Daniel Jones.
I don't think you're going to see anything different from Daniel Jones. I don't think he's that good. The Giants overdrafted him at the draft. He was maybe a second-round pick. They picked him at number 7. Which was, and I said at the time, what a mistake. What a colossal blunder. And it's just been proven correct. Could he be a serviceable quarterback on a good team? Maybe. I just don't think he's that good. Make or break, I think he's already broken.
Really? You think there's no coming back there? What you see is what you've got. You expect no more upside from him.
I've never been impressed with him. He shows a little flash here and there, but he's not very consistent. I don't know. I've never been a fan of him. Maybe it's his name. Just blah. Daniel Jones.
Here's the thing, right? I look at all the weapons they've put around Jones now. I mean, there is no excuse. There's no shortage of offensive weapons that he's surrounded by. You've got Barkley, who's, all pro caliber running back when healthy. He'll be back next year. You look at the wide receiver core, right? Golden Tate's gone, but hey, you brought in Kenny Galloway. That is a hell of an upgrade. You went ahead and drafted Kadarius Toney. That's supposed to be an impact maker. I know that, hey, the wide receivers core has been banged up. Sterling Shepard, when he's healthy, plays well, but he's always banged up. He's technically healthy right now. You still have Darius Slayton, too. You talk about 4 really viable wide receiver options, an outstanding running back, and Evan Ingram, when healthy, is a hell of a tight end. You have every single offensive weapon you could ever imagine this year. And if you don't perform, I'm sorry, it's on you. You're the issue.
The one caveat is their offensive line has not been very good. That's the one I'm going to give Daniel Jones a slight pass and give him the potential to potentially get better just because the offensive line should be a little bit improved from last year. Their line's not been good the last 2 years. His biggest plays are running. I don't know. I'm just not a fan of Duke quarterbacks, to be honest with you. Yeah, if you're looking for a point guard or a power forward, okay, I look at Duke. If I'm looking for quarterbacks, that's one of the last places I'm going.
Well, they all love Cutcliffe.
And here's the thing. It reminds me of when the Giants selected Dave Brown with a first-round pick in the supplemental draft back in 1993. He was a nightmare, too, from Duke. That's Dave Brown, Daniel Jones. What's the difference? None. 20 years. That's about the difference.
Yeah, oh, goodness, grumpy old man. I'll tell you this. You think the Giants are kicking themselves for not having drafted Josh Allen?
I think a lot of teams are kicking themselves for not having drafted Josh Allen, but it's not as simple as that, right? How many years, right? And I was always a big Josh Allen fan because you cannot teach that type of arm talent. You just can't. Or the athleticism that he has. But look at how many years it took him to get to where he is now, right? Three full years, and they just fed him to the wolves. I still don't think he's perfect. I think there are times when he can I think he's perfect for Buffalo, by the way. Blue-collar city, blue-collar quarterback. Reminds me a lot of Jim Kelly, but I think there are still times that you can rattle him. But he's way better than he used to be with that.
Yeah, it's just one of those things you kind of ponder about. And you think to yourself, man, oh man, the Giants are saddled with him, and you're just kind of shaking your head. And again, that's the year, right? Giants select Barkley. Don't even get me started.
Yeah, but
We'll go off on a tangent. You should never draft a running back that early. I'm sorry. Don't care how good and uber talented he is. Don't draft running backs that early.
yeah, but if they would have picked Josh Allen at number 2, you think that would have been a wise move? I don't think so. It's like saying, well, do other teams regret not drafting Tom Brady? Right? I mean, it's the same thing, right? Hindsight being 2020. I mean, it was a perfect storm. You got a guy who goes 199 or a guy who goes number, what were they, 6 or 10? I forget where.
I think 7. I think Josh Allen was 7.
Okay. And the Giants had the 2 pick. That would have been way too high for Josh Allen if they trade back. But they had a need. I mean, you cannot say that Saquon Barkley has not been a really good player for them when healthy. You can't say that.
Running backs are a dime a dozen. Trust me, we could fill an entire pod on that and an entire argument on that, Crump. But running backs are a dime a dozen, just like you said. Their shelf life is extremely short. Why the hell would you draft one in the top 5 if you think they get cashed out so quickly? You should be on board with this thought process.
Yeah, I just don't have a problem with them drafting him. The problem I have is the second contract. That's the problem that I have. Do you give a guy like that a second contract? I don't. They take too much punishment.
So you would be willing to draft a running back for only 5 years service, a guy in the top 5 for 5 years service, and say, all right, goodbye. For 5 years, you'd pick a guy in the top 5? I'm sorry, no.
But this guy's an extremely good player. You're just selling him short. He does everything. He does everything.
I think he's an all-pro caliber player. I'm not denying that. I'm just saying you don't draft running backs in the top 5. You don't draft running backs that early in the draft. I'm sorry, especially when you had a gaping need at quarterback there with you. Like, neither here nor there. There was one thing I saw that made me laugh about the Giants roster. Do you know Kelvin Benjamin right now is on the roster again? They haven't gone through cuts or anything like that, but it's funny, a blast from the past. Kelvin Benjamin, ex-Carolina Panther, and then he was to the Buffalo Bills, ate his way out of the league. Might as well call him Eddie Lacy 2.0. Yeah, Kelvin Benjamin right now is going to get his chance there this year, maybe to break the roster for the Giants.
I'm going to bet he's going to love White Castle hamburgers. That's what I'm going to bet. Maybe that's why he went to the Giants.
Oh, goodness, grumpy old man.
You get a lot of those.
You're in consensus, though. Daniel Jones, make it or break it year this year.
Yeah, I mean, sure. I don't think he's that great. I never thought he was that great. I thought they overdrafted him, wildly overdrafted him. I think that's the mistake they made the last couple of drafts. They're picking guys, not necessarily Tony, but Tony was projected to go a lot lower also. But they're picking guys who should be going like 10 or 15 picks later, and you're snagging them so early. If that's the way you feel, and the consensus is that these guys are going to go slip 10, 15 spots, why not trade down? That's just smart asset management, but they haven't been doing it. And that's on Dave Gettleman.
Well, he never trades out of the first round until this year. But they wanted. I mean, I know they picked up Tony. They were looking there for Devontae Smith, I believe it was, and he went to pick right before them, and that's why the Eagles traded up to go get that selection. That being said, Grumpy, there's some MLB news today. It seems like on a consistent basis, we're hearing more and more about cheating in the MLB in some capacity, right? You talk about the sticky substance. You talk about you talk about the sticky substance that, pitchers use, a combination of whatever it is. And now here, Ryan Spader saying here, the Yankees were cheating there, and they had cameras in left, center, and right field, all pointing at the pitcher's glove rather than the catcher to pick up on his grip. Aaron Judge, and he breaks down there the home batting average compared to the away batting average, and Aaron Judge's home batting average was significantly better than his away batting average.
Well, a lot of guys feel more comfortable at home. There's no way of telling. I don't know who Ryan Spader is, but the big news to me this week was the spider tack, which is stuff that like the guys who are in the world's strongest athlete thing, where these guys are like 350 pounds and they're picking up 300-pound boulders. They put that stuff on their hands because it's easier for them to grip.
You talk about the world's strongest men, right, Grum?
Yeah. That's what spider tack is used for. They're able to, so this way they can hold on to those boulders and move them around. I can see why they'd use it. Why do Major League Baseball pitchers use it? Well, because what it does, it has such a grip on it that it holds in their finger longer and therefore generates. I mean, the last year or two, what are you hearing about, right? Spin rate. That's the big thing, is spin rate. It was never even a term that was even used 3 years ago. Now the big thing is spin rate. And supposedly what this does is, since you're able to grip that ball longer, you're able to snap it more and you get more spin, makes the ball move tougher to hit. I can understand. I mean, look at the pitchers this year. Everybody's throwing off the charts, right? Strikeouts. Nobody's hitting the ball anymore. I think it's a combination, of course, of the home run mentality, but maybe also with this spider grip, the spider tack, I'm sorry. To me, Major League Baseball is the most hypocritical. Well, here's the thing, all sports are hypocritical, but Major League Baseball in particular, right? We're going to crack down on guys who use steroids. I could care less if you use steroids. You're not hurting anybody but yourself in the long run, right? But Major League Baseball is big on, the sanctity of the sport. The records mean something. This is the way it is, so we can judge through history. Well, I don't feel that way. I mean, if everybody's using steroids and everybody's using it, there's no use judging somebody from 60, 75 years ago with today, because they didn't even have spider tack. I mean, they let Major League pitchers use stuff on the balls now to get a better grip. Just the spider tack is new stuff. That's the thing that's frustrating to me. They say it's okay to use rosin. It's okay to use there's another substance, but they don't want them using spider tack or sunscreen for some reason.
No, it's okay. You're kind of jumbling them up. So no, they don't want them to have any type of substance at all. Spider tack, no substance at all. They have to go cold turkey, otherwise you get an automatic 10-game suspension. And Tyler Glass now went ahead and said that him having to go cold turkey, he's been using it for years and years and years, just like everybody else. And he went ahead and had to change. He had to change his grip and delivery a little bit, and he wound up tearing. I think I can't remember what it is there. I'm trying to remember. I think he wound up tearing
his UCL.
Yeah. He had to switch his grip there on his fastball and his curveball, and wound up tearing his UCL because he wasn't able to get that extra grip. So a little different. That being said, though, right? You think about the cameras that have been used. You think about, the spider tack. Here's my question. This is an overarching question. Are MLB organizations worse at hiding their ability to cheat, or does cheating just run more rampant in the MLB than it runs anywhere else? Right? You think about all the other type of sports stories. You think about all the other scandals. How many scandals do you see? You'll occasionally see them in football. Hey, Deflategate, Overinflategate. They're using the super sticky stuff. Is it because they have more lax policies on enforcing their rules? Is it because they cheat less? Or is it because the MLB just is bad cheaters?
There's so many subtle ways you can cheat in Major League Baseball. That's the difference. And the same thing in football. You can cheat in football also. What do they say in auto racing? If you're not cheating, you're not trying. Everyone is looking for a competitive edge. There are certain sports where you can't do it. Basketball, I don't see how you can really cheat in basketball. And soccer, I don't see how you can cheat in soccer because there's not a whole lot involved but the ball. And both teams play with it at the same time, where Major League Baseball is a little bit different. But you realize the minor league organizations are telling these guys to do this. These guys aren't coming up with it on their own. It's being preached as they come up through the organization. Yeah, use this, gets a better grip on it. They've been doing it for ages. And it's just laughable that Major League now, all of a sudden, an article comes out in Sports Illustrated, and all of a sudden it's like, it's the end of the world. I think is the fact. You want to know the real reason? Offensive numbers are down. Batting average is down. There's no activity. Runs are down. Scoring's down. And viewership is down. So they want to do something to juice the game back up, right? They de-juice the baseball, supposedly. So all those numbers down. Pitching's making a comeback. Let's try to find something to level the playing field. You know what? How about this? No substances at all. How about doing that? Maybe that'll work better for you. Picking and choosing what they can and can't do.
And Ryan Spader also had a few other items as well that he was mentioning. Again, I had no idea the validity of these, but it's worth at least talking about because it'd be insane if some of these are true, right? He name drops that Chase Utley was one of the biggest cheaters of all times. And as insane as this sounds, I've heard from multiple sources that Adrian Beltre had a buddy with binoculars in dead center that would wave a beater, an undershirt, if he was going to get an off-speed pitch in 2017. And he points to the home and away batting averages in 2017. And Astros sign-stealing method came from Adrian Beltran. Or I'm sorry, Adrian Beltran there from New York and Texas.
I just find it amusing how, they have such different splits, home and away. If that was the case, why wouldn't these players and teams make sure they bought tickets, like in this Beltre's example, just buy a ticket in every single baseball stadium in center field, and the guy with the T-shirt. This way you'd have you'd have the same advantage on the road as at home.
Here's my question. Do you think it'd be a little obvious? When there's a home game, you're like, oh, it's the crazy fan Joe over there who waves his wife beater around left and right during games and freaks out. You ever think it's something like that? But if you see the crazy guy who just shows up to the home games now is following the team everywhere they go, dressed in the same way, doing the same crazy stuff, I think that'd be a little obvious. And here's my thing, right? I think, and I want to get back to the overarching point, I think leagues and people cheat any which way humanly possible. And there's always that gray line that they're in. I don't know why, though, this is continually being brought up. I know you bring up the point, hey, maybe it's because, numbers are down, viewership's down. That's why all this stuff is being brought to light. I'm just not sure. Maybe there's just more cheating that goes on in baseball. Maybe there's just maybe it's just that they're worse cheaters. I don't know. Like this type of stuff, you don't see stuff like this in the NFL. You don't see stuff like this in the NHL. You don't see stuff like this coming to light in the NBA. You don't see stuff like that, but you're seeing it happen on a consistent basis this year. And maybe it's just this year they're just shining the light and they're finally like, oh, look what we found under the rug.
Well, the difference is because the other sports are true team sports, okay? In football, both teams use a football, right? Yes, they use their own footballs, but the referees handle them all the time. In basketball, we just use one basketball. In soccer, just one ball. In hockey, one puck, right? But what happens in baseball? Even though it's a team sport, it's basically an individual sport, pitcher versus batter. So the batters, years and years ago, they were corking bats. That was a thing, right? They were corking bats. Albert Bell got caught corking a bat, right? I mean,
Sammy Sosa also got caught corking a bat too, right?
Yeah, but here's the thing. Through the history of baseball, people have been doing things to get a competitive advantage. That's what it is. And eventually they get caught and they get popped, okay? That's what the whole thing's about. This is another thing that'll just go away. They'll find some other way to cheat in another couple of years, and we'll have another one of these scandals come out. To me, it's all much ado about nothing.
So it doesn't bother you at all then, Grump?
Nope, not at all. Not at all. I wish Major League batters would just learn how to hit the ball the other way. You want to be a better hitter instead of swinging for home runs? Right? Why do they swing for home runs? Why? What's your thinking of why they swing?
My take as to why they're swinging for home runs is because everything is all about power. All it's about is hitting the ball as long as humanly possible. No longer about placing the ball. Everybody look at the shifts, the insane shifts they have in today's game too.
It's about money. The more home runs you hit, the more runs you knock in, the bigger your next contract's going to be. That's why players do it. Strikeouts don't mean anything anymore. The stats geeks will tell you that, walks are unimportant. A home run is way more important than a walk. A strikeout, well, it's just another out. But if you could hit yourself a home run, well, there you go. That's what we want. That's why 1 out of every 3 at-bats is a strikeout, a walk, or a home run. That's why the sport is dying.
Absolutely. Moving along from MLB news, grumpy old man, moving to little NBA action here. Got a few comments, and I've got a video I want you to watch and react to. I know I can only imagine the take you're going to have on it. LeBron James, just a little while ago here today, said, obviously upset about the condensed schedule, and he's saying it's leading there to more injuries because Kawhi Leonard's going to be out there with that knee injury, that right knee injury. But here's the comment. They didn't want to listen to me about the start of the season. I knew exactly what would happen. I only wanted to protect the well-being of players, which ultimately is the product and benefit of our game. These injuries aren't just a part of the game. It's a lack of pure rim test, a rim rest before starting back up. 9, possibly 8, or 8, possibly 9 All-Stars, missed playoff games, most in league history. This is the best time of the year for our league and for fans, but missing a ton of our favorite players. It's insane. If there's only one person that you know about and the body and how it works all year round, it's me. I speak for the health of our players. I hate to see this many injuries at this time of the year. Sorry, fans. Wish you guys were seeing all your favorite guys right now.
Just when you thought he was out, he pulls you back in. I mean, your team was eliminated, what, 2-3 weeks ago? Get over it, LeBron. I mean, I love it how a guy who's got a high school education, and I'm not saying he's dumb. I'm absolutely not, because I think he's a smart businessman. He's not a doctor, though. So for him to make these statements, he's talking out of his ass because he has absolutely no idea what he's talking about. Guys get injured all the time. I mean, you roll an ankle. Is that because you played too many games? Kyrie Irving missed some playoff games, right? He went up for a shot. Guy steps underneath. He steps on his foot, rolls an ankle. That happens all the time. I mean, I'm sure that LeBron has not checked to ever throughout the history of the game if 9 All-Stars had missed a playoff game during a playoff season. I'm sure he has absolutely no idea. Like I said, he's just talking out of his ass. I could care less what he says. Their season was slightly abbreviated, and he might say he cares about the players, but all he cares about is himself.
Okay, here it is. I think he somewhat cares about everybody. Let's be honest here. I'm going to try to find the common ground here, Grumpy, because that's what I'm going to try to do here.
He doesn't care about the Chinese. He's going to take their money, no matter the atrocities they do in Hong Kong. He's got no problem doing that. He cares only about himself and his pocketbook. That's where LeBron James is coming from.
Okay. Well, good. I'm glad you said that, but it has nothing to do at all with his comments. So I'm going to bring it back there to the centralized point, Grumpy old man. They did play 72 games this year, so technically a condensed schedule. Here it is, though. You're right. I think you're right somewhat, because when you roll an ankle, when you step on something, it has nothing to do with the amount of games that you play. Here's also something to take into account. Players now, and even a few years ago, have these load days and these rest days, load management days. I'm sorry. You have your load management days to where I'm going to take this game off because I want to make sure I'm fresh for the playoffs. I'm going to take, I'm going to go ahead and play I'm going to go ahead and play 3 out of every 4 games. I want to play 4 out of every 5 games to make sure I'm ready for the playoffs. I'm going to do my load management game today. Look at basketball look at basketball 10, 20 years ago. There was no such thing as load management days. What the hell is that garbage now? And, even though you're playing a shortened and abbreviated schedule, all these star players all have load management days anyway. So, I don't know. I guess maybe I've got a disconnect there.
Here's the thing. Back in the day when I was younger, everybody played every game. They played through injuries. There's none of this ridiculousness. Everybody played every single game. If a guy missed a chunk of time, it was highly unusual. I'm going to tell you what. Maybe these guys aren't as good a shape as you think that they are, like they were in the old days. You know what? You make yourself a lot of money. Maybe you don't work out as hard in the off season. Who knows? Or maybe they're so finely tuned in their bodies that any little thing, well, we can't play through that injury. Who knows? Honestly, I could care less.
I always do think it's funny, right? You talk about the amount of newer injuries that are popping up left and right, but we've had developments there in health and recovery there, all the latest and greatest there, the cryogenic freeze, all this other stuff like that. But the amount of people who are now injured during games are increasing at a rapid rate. I always do find that quite odd and funny. I do think, though, I think LeBron is coming from a point where he does feel for the rest of the players. I think also maybe he's got some sour grapes because remember his calves, and he was essentially playing on one leg is what he was claiming throughout the playoffs this year. And again, like Anthony Davis was banged up. So, there definitely is some personal vested interest behind those comments there for himself. Moving right along, though, it's
always about him. It's always about him.
Gotcha. There is one other item. And again, this happened, Grumpy Old Man, on the 13th. So a few days ago, I had to get your take. As soon as I saw it, I said, oh, man, I wonder what the Grumpy Old Man would think here about this. to set the scene here for you, let's go ahead and bring this full screen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you see this, Grump? Joking.
No, I did not, but you need to make the screen bigger or I can't see it.
Okay. He got
that's what I said.
Joker got ejected after this hard foul on Payne. I want you to watch this. There was something immediately that came to mind, but I'll let you go ahead and make your own decision here first, Grumpy.
Who am I looking at first of all?
You will see it. You will see it, Grumpy. So I want you to see here this he obviously hits Payne. And again, everybody's, messing up. They're scrumming it up over here. Joe kick there. He goes in and swats. He swats at the ball. I'm going to let you watch this. I'm going to let you watch this in slow-mo there. There's Booker mixing it up there. And again, they're on the verge. They got eliminated after this anyway, Joe kick and the Denver Nuggets. That being said,
isn't he one of the best players in the league?
Yes. Yes. I think he won the MVP. He won the MVP this year, Grump.
Well, times have changed. Okay, he gets the ball.
He hits the ball. He hits the ball hard and gets ejected. Oh. Look you saw how grazed his face right there?
I don't even think he hit him.
Yes, he did.
Okay, he hit him with his bicep.
He hit him with his bicep. Listening to these fools on TNT talking about, at first, no, I didn't see it. Actually, he kind of does graze him on the face there with his bicep. You just can't come down so hard like that. He did make contact with the face, so I think this was a justified call. He got ejected for this hit right here, ladies and gentlemen. It's all because of the motion, I feel like. But look at how freaking soft this is.
Okay. Is it any wonder I don't watch the NBA? Honestly, like I said, who cares? I don't think anybody, I won't say no one watches the NBA. Their numbers are way down. Way down.
I got mauled. I just love that, man. I just love that. He's laying on the ground like he's been murdered. I'm like, please get the hell up. Stop with that.
He should be embarrassed that he went down like that. But he won't. I mean, here's the thing. Phoenix is better than Denver anyway, so it didn't matter. But to toss the MVP out, come on.
Well, here's
like I said, they play favorites in the NBA. They always have. They had Jordan did whatever he wanted. Isaiah Thomas would take 4 steps to the basket. It's just the way it is. But you would think if he's one of the bigger stars, I'm shocked that they suspended him. I mean,
the series was over, and again, now they got swept. Got a comment here from John P. There saying if that was LeBron, he would not have been ejected. You don't eject the league MVP. Bunch of wussies nowadays in the NBA for certain.
I mean, there's a reason why viewership is down. I mean, the game, everything is isolation game now. Man, I remember when I was a kid growing up, man, the Lakers, the Celtics, those teams could run. They were a team. Everything wasn't a 3-point shot or a slam dunk. There's no intermediate game anymore. It's a slam or a 3-point shot. That's the whole game. That's why it's not as fun anymore.
Yeah, I'm not going to disagree with you there at all, grumpy old man.
And the fact that so many Europeans in the league, I can't remember all their names now. I'm real simple like that. I used to love, watching the kids who came out of high school, out of college. You kind of knew them. They all played college for 3 or 4 years. So you kind of knew who they were. Now you don't know anybody. You see some kid get drafted from France, 18 years old. Nobody's ever heard of him. He goes to the D League for a couple of years. He comes in. He's just starting like, who is this kid? I've never even heard of him.
It's the G League, I believe.
Whatever it is.
It's the G League now. Gatorade.
What does the G stand for?
Gatorade, I think.
Oh, I'm sorry. The D League used to be Developmental League. I guess they got money out of that too. Good job, NBA.
Yeah. It used to be the D League for the Developmental League, but now it's the G League after the Gatorade League, I believe.
It's like we can't say disabled list. We have to say injured list because disabled people don't like disabled list. Who cares? It's been the disabled list for 100 years? And now, I mean, I could care less, but it's like, really? You really have to change it for that? Become soft as a society, honestly.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree, Grumpy. I believe man, maybe I'm wrong. I really thought the G League, though. I think the G League stands for the Gatorade League. But anyway, it stands for growth.
Growth league. What, development wasn't good enough? Somebody said, oh, well, what if someone's got developmental problems? Maybe you shouldn't call it development league. Well, what if you got a guy with a pituitary problem and, they're opposed to, what about growth? What do you mean? I don't need to grow anymore. Why is it the G League? Maybe we should call it something else. How about the F League, the friendly league? How about we just call it that? Soft, weak.
I want to talk. We did not talk about this last podcast, our last TJ and the Grumpy Old Man podcast. Dougie Hamilton made some pretty bold statements regarding the Tampa Bay Lightning. Again, best team in the NHL, Tampa Bay Lightning. He said, we had a good year and we lost to a team that was $18 million over the cap, Grumpy Old Man. How sour do those grapes sound? How sour are those grapes, and how salty does Dougie Hamilton sound?
Yeah. Stop crying, Doug Hamilton. I mean, and he played great for Carolina this year, but if you remember, he didn't really fit in Boston. They moved him. Didn't really fit in Calgary, so they moved him to Carolina. And now Carolina's saying he can work out a deal, where he can sign a contract and get traded somewhere else. So he's not working out there. So I'd say it's more about Doug Hamilton as opposed to, the Tampa Bay Lightning. I mean, all they did was play by the rules.
Here's another thing too, right? I think it's important to mention about Dougie Hamilton and about hockey in general. Teams do not let top pairing defensemen go willy-nilly unless there are legitimate problems. Think about how many places PK Subban has been. Everybody's like, oh, well, he gets labeled that because, XYZ, he's really not a bad character. You can liken the same exact situation that Dougie Hamilton has, bouncing from place to place. Oh, he's not a fit here, not a fit there. You're right. He's a top 2 defenseman. He's a top pairing defenseman on any team in the NHL who puts up offensive production and also is a good defender. And he gets moved on a consistent basis. Think about that. He's only 27 years old, and this could be his 4th team if moved. Every single team, you're looking at about a 3 or 4 year window that he could be there until we'd rather have somebody else.
And he just
move you.
Yeah, well, he wears out his welcome. Teammates don't like him. No one likes him. That's the scuttlebutt going around. He played himself off of every team because he's just not a likable person. Well, bye-bye, Dougie. He's going to be like a wide receiver in the NFL, those diva wide receivers. As soon as like you see the Islanders have a Travis Zajac or a Matt Martin. You're not going to see that with Doug Hamilton because he's not a good guy. And, by everything that I've heard, don't know personally. So when his exploration date is maybe a little bit past due, goodbye. Like Terrell Owens could never get a job when his performance started to dip. There's a reason. And that's what's going to happen with Doug Hamilton. You watch.
I don't disagree. I will say, though, I have no issue at all with the Tampa Bay Lightning being $18 million over the cap. I don't blame them. Congratulations, right? Most teams, and I look at it like this, most teams could not afford to have 2 of their top scorers miss more than 15 games in a season, still make the playoffs. Arguably the best point producer on your team in Kucherov missed the entire year and be ready to go for the playoffs and still make the NHL playoffs after having your best point producer out there the entire year. I put more blame and fault on the NHL. If there's an issue, if there's a finger to point, it's not towards the Tampa Bay Lightning. Good for them. I would be happy if my team was the Tampa Bay Lightning and they did something like that because they're using the rules to their full advantage. The burden lies though on the NHL, in my opinion.
Well, that was collectively bargained. The players agreed to it. So I don't see what the problem is. If they want to go through, and let me tell you something. The league screws the players every chance they get. If it gives the guy another opportunity to play and help a team, I don't have a problem with it. But you know what? You can negotiate that away at the next CBA. That's the only thing. Stop crying over it. Those are the rules, and every team uses them to some extent. Just the way it is. We did the same thing when Anders Lee went out, right? The Islanders did the same thing. They were able to put him on long-term injury and sign somebody else who could fill his spot because the salary cap didn't mean anything. What's the difference? Well, the difference is because they didn't play all year and the salary cap money doesn't mean anything once you go into the playoffs. But you're right. Most teams couldn't have their two best players sit out. One guy the whole season, another guy missed the last 15 games and still make the playoffs. That's what makes them a special team.
16, but yeah, Grumpy, I'd about to say 15 plus is insane. John P. also saying Hamilton and Cassidy are playing golf somewhere together.
Not together. No, they're not. They're not playing together. I'll say that. They're not playing together. Doug Hamilton's probably playing with his brother because it's the only person he gets away with. And Bruce Cassidy, I don't know.
Probably gets along with Grumpy.
Yeah.
Hey, with goodness gracious, Grump, jumping all over the place over there. Anyway, moving right along there, Grump. On to some different news there. Again, we won't show it because again, it's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of not a great thing to see. Though Christian Eriksen, though, for those of you who do watch soccer, is A-OK, alive and well. His heart stopped there on the field. And man, scary scene as they were giving him CPR, trying to resuscitate, bring him back to life as he collapsed out there on the soccer field. Young lad like that, having health issues and complications there. Man, oh man, what a somber, what a somber feeling that was there watching all that happen. Again, it was surreal too. You're just like, wow, this is serious.
I watched that live and it was scary. It reminded me of Hank Gathers, who played at Loyola Marymount back in the 1990s. The way he fell and was kind of twitching a little bit on the ground, that's exactly what happened with Hank Gathers. I knew right away he'd had a heart attack. And he wound up having cardiac arrest on the field. And they did some serious work to get his heart beating again. And, thank goodness. If I'm Christian Eriksen, he's talking about coming back and playing. I would recommend that he doesn't. I mean, he's able to do whatever he wants, but there's some issue some underlying issue that causes your heart to stop. I mean, do you really want to take that chance? He's 29 years old. From everything you've heard, a really great guy. And I would not recommend he play again. The biggest thing that shocked me, honestly, was the fact that they resumed that game, which I was stunned. And now you're hearing things come out it was Denmark, who Eriksen plays for, against Finland. And Denmark was certainly the odds-on favorite to win that game at home, that match. And they kind of gave the players an ultimatum. Well, you can finish the game now or, play tomorrow morning, the rest of the game. And now you're hearing the players complaining like, hey, it shouldn't have been like that. We felt we were pressured into it. Well, you know what the players could have done? Said, no, we're not playing. I could not have imagined playing after seeing that. His teammates were visibly crying on the field. You see a teammate die in front of your eyes? I'm sorry that has an emotional effect. I mean, without a doubt. And I can't believe they came back and played. I can't believe it.
I will tell you this. You're right. I mean, again, this is in Copenhagen, the game there in Denmark. Man, oh man, it was scary watching him die out there in the field and being brought back to life. And it's right. You look at the goal that Kasper Schmeichel let in. Yikes! It was a weak one. The goal that the Denmark goalie let in. They'll wind up leading them to lose 1-0 there to Finland. Again, that's the first time Finland has ever won a game in Euros or the World Cup, World Cup qualifying. So it's always odd to see that. And they said, it's funny. Kasper Schmeichel's dad, Peter Schmeichel, all-time great there, goalie, I believe, for Manchester United back in the time, said that they were forced out there on the field. A lot of people didn't want to do it, and it's funny, right? As soon as they went back out there on the pitch, the narrative immediately was by ESPN and by ESPN football that the reason they're going out there, Christian Eriksen called them up for the hospital and said, guys, go ahead and finish up the game. You could do it. And both teams came to a unanimous decision that they wanted to go back out there on the field. I'm saying there's a lot more of a gray area than we're being led to believe here, ladies and gentlemen. A lot more gray.
Yeah, I'm going to call bullshit on that and say they were forced out there by UEFA. They could care less about the players. They just care about money. And that's international soccer. And, just to say about Schmeichel, a lot of people probably don't follow soccer like we do. But he's like a top 10, top 15 goalie in the world. And the goal, he was visibly shaken up. Visibly shaken up. Mm-hmm. And, you know, one of the commentators, Christian Fuchs, was a teammate of his. And he said, he's not right. He's not right out there. And he gave up a goal he never would give up, honestly. And I feel bad for Denmark because they're going to be out of the tournament. I love the Euros, though. So.
And then John P. also saying, thank goodness for those portable defibrillators. Yeah, for certain. Again, those things right there. Have you ever seen one of them in action? They're amazing. They'll tell you, you know, what you have to do exactly, and it'll automatically figure out what the heart rate is there for the person. If it's erratic, they'll go ahead and do, you know, set clear, and it'll do it for you pretty much. I mean, it's crazy how far defibrillators have come too, Grumpy.
Yeah, well, his were at 0 because he was dead. He was clinically dead on the field. I mean, thank goodness. And the thing for me is, you know, why could they not get – it didn't look like they had the capability of getting an ambulance into the stadium. I mean, I know in high school games, they have to have a paramedics truck there at every single high school football game. They have to have it just in case of injury. And for something like this is a $1 billion entity, UEFA football. And the fact that they couldn't get an ambulance in there, it was horrifying seeing those guys have to hold the towels up over so the fans couldn't. I mean, that was really, really tough to watch. It really was. I mean, and you look at the people in stands, the ones who could see it. I mean, everyone was visibly shaken. The commentators were visibly shaken. It shook me, I'll be honest with you. I mean, I didn't think he was going to make it. Thank goodness he did.
Absolutely. No better way also to end the podcast of Here, Grumpy Old Man. Now we are going to be going live. I know we usually do it Thursday. We'll be going live again Thursday because if the Islanders have a game on Wednesday, if there's a game 6 on Wednesday for the Islanders against Tampa Bay Lightning, we want to make sure we'll have that podcast on Thursday. Also, for listeners of TJ and the Grumpy Old Man, once the Islanders season ends, Grump and I are going to come at you twice a week there in this podcast format. It's going to be more, I guess, deep hitting questions, more of a philosophical battle perhaps out there. The battle of wits, philosophical. Holy shit, Grump. I could tell I'm getting to the end. A philosophical battle between Grump and myself. That being said, Grumpy, is there anything else you want to add in before we wrap things up here for today?
I just want to say love and laughter to everyone who listens and even those who don't, from TJ and the Grumpy Old Man.
Well, thank you so much there, Grump. Remember, the best way to show support there for the channel as well as this this type of podcast format and live stream is to make sure you subscribe, hit like, and also, hey, if there's anything you want us to cover, comment, tweet at us. Let us know what you want us to cover in upcoming videos. We are not opposed to taking your suggestions and running there with it. But thank you so much again, Grumpy Old Man, for being a part of this. And thank you, everybody who tuned in there to the live stream and the podcast today.